The Mongols also mastered intelligence gathering. Spies and merchants provided detailed information about enemy territories before armies ever arrived. Psychological warfare amplified their reputation. Rumors of Mongol brutality spread faster than their armies, causing some cities to surrender without a fight. In late 1219, they crossed into Khwarezmian territory using multiple routes, a tactic that baffled defenders accustomed to unified armies moving slowly. The Mongols struck multiple cities simultaneously, fragmenting the empire's defenses. Otrā fell first. After a 5-month siege, the traitorous governor was captured. According to Persian chroniclers, molten silver was poured into his eyes and ears, a symbolic punishment for his greed and blindness. Shah Muhammad II fled westward, abandoning his empire. He died alone on an island in the Caspian Sea in 1220, hunted to the end. By early 1220, the Mongol forces approached Samarkand. The city's defenders prepared for a siege, confident in their walls and numbers. Refugees brought terrifying reports from cities that had resisted, entire populations slaughtered, monuments reduced to rubble. But Samarkand had never fallen to a foreign power. Its leaders believed they could endure. That confidence would soon be tested in ways they could never have imagined. In March 1220, Mongol forces surrounded Samarkand. Genghis Khan commanded the operation personally, deploying siege engines operated by Chinese and Muslim engineers who had been captured or recruited in previous campaigns. For 5 days, catapults hurled stones and incendiary materials at the walls, while mounted archers prevented anyone from escaping. Inside the city, panic spread. The garrison commander knew reinforcements were not coming. The Shah had abandoned his empire. On the 3rd day, a sortie of Turkic cavalry charged out to break the siege. They were annihilated by coordinated archery before reaching the Mongol lines. Continue resisting and ensure total destruction, or surrender and hope for mercy. A delegation of scholars, merchants, and religious leaders approached the Mongol camp, bearing gifts and pleas. Genghis Khan received them with calm calculation. His terms were clear: surrender all weapons, disband the garrison, and open the gates. In exchange, the city would be spared immediate destruction. The leaders agreed. They had no alternative. When the Mongol forces entered Samarkand, they moved with disciplined precision. This was not a chaotic sacking, but an organized extraction of value. The population was herded into open squares and separated into categories. These individuals were valuable to the expanding empire and would be relocated east to serve Mongol interests. The garrison soldiers, approximately 30,000 men who had surrendered their weapons, were marched outside the walls. Persian historian Abdülmalik Shuvani, writing decades later based on eyewitness accounts, recorded that most were executed. The treatment of women during medieval conquests remains one of history's darkest chapters. This practice was not unique to the Mongols. It occurred across medieval warfare, but the scale of Mongol operations made the suffering immense. Chroniclers from the Islamic world recorded these events with horror, though exact numbers are impossible to verify. What is clear from multiple sources is that the targeting of women was deliberate policy, designed to fracture conquered societies, reward loyal troops, and demonstrate total subjugation. Among the survivors was a scholar class that the Mongols spared for their knowledge. These men were forced into service, their expertise in astronomy, medicine, engineering, and administration put to work for the empire. Some quietly documented what they witnessed, creating records that would survive in Persian and Arabic manuscripts. Soviet excavations in the 1960s, led by archaeologist Yuri Buryakov, uncovered charred layers dating to the early 13th century. Mass graves, burned structures, and hastily buried valuables painted a picture of a city interrupted midlife by catastrophic violence. The Mongol conquest of Khwarezm continued beyond Samarkand. Cities like Bukhara, Urgench, and Nishapur faced similar or worse fates. Urgench resisted for months before being flooded when the Mongols diverted the Amu Darya River, collapsing sections of wall. The subsequent massacre reportedly lasted weeks. At Nishapur, where a Mongol prince had been killed during the siege, the orders for retaliation were absolute. Persian sources claimed the entire population was executed, though these numbers, sometimes reaching over 1 million, were likely exaggerated to emphasize the horror. Jalal al-Din, son of the deceased Shah, emerged as the last significant resistance. In late 1221, Genghis Khan cornered him near the Indus River. The battle was fierce and desperate. Jalal al-Din's outnumbered forces fought with the courage of men defending their civilization's final breath. Ultimately overwhelmed, Jalal al-Din spurred his horse off a riverbank and plunged into the Indus, escaping into India. According to chroniclers, Genghis Khan watched this feat and remarked on Jalal al-Din's courage, a rare moment of respect. Jalal al-Din would continue resisting until his death in 1231. The Khwarezmian Empire ceased to exist. Its population was killed, enslaved, or scattered. Trade routes collapsed. Agricultural regions fell into disuse. Estimates of total casualties vary wildly from hundreds of thousands to several million, but what matters is the structural destruction. An entire civilization was effectively erased. The Pax Mongolica enabled unprecedented exchange of goods, technologies, and ideas across Eurasia. Cities were rebuilt under Mongol administration, including Samarkand, which would later flourish under Timur in the 14th century. The Mongol model of conquest, combining mobility, intelligence, siege technology, and ruthless enforcement, would influence military thinking for centuries. For the people of Samarkand, the spring of 1220 marked the end of one world and the forced beginning of another. Their city survived, but transformed. The lives lost, the families destroyed, and the suffering endured became part of the historical record preserved in chronicles, archaeological remains, and collective memory. History does not repeat, but it echoes. The strategies of conquest, the machinery of empire, and the human capacity for both cruelty and resilience remain relevant. Understanding how Samarkand fell helps us recognize patterns of power that persist across time and, perhaps, helps us build systems that resist them.